Hello and welcome to the Collective Basketball Agreements Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Manganiello. We're talking Seattle Storm here with the 2025 WNBA free agency recaps. Biggest story with them, of course, wasn't free agency, but a trade, as we will no longer be watching Jewel Loyd in a Storm uniform. We will, however, see a very talented young player as the Storm were able to get the number 2 overall pick in April's draft. Let's quickly go through the fundamentals here, though. Seattle has a 25-15 record, third in the WNBA's Western Conference behind Minnesota and Las Vegas. And I'll just say briefly, Seattle blew me away. I predicted them to be much lower in the standings a year ago, and they were quite competent. 25 wins is no joke. They were 6th in the WNBA in offense, a 104.2 offensive rating, 4th in defense, a 98.6, and that's a positive 5.6 net rating, 5th in the WNBA. So they were credibly a top 5 WNBA team last year. They ran into the Aces. They lost 2-0. And ultimately, for this or that reason, Jewel Loyd decided her time in Seattle is done. There's been plenty of reporting as well as speculation on what exactly went wrong behind the scenes there. For the purposes of today's episode, I'm not going to get too far into that, but I do think it's fascinating to see a trade where 2 number 1 overall picks, Loyd for Plum, were moved. It was a 3-team deal, and Seattle decides we're going to take a step back. We're going to reload the franchise. We're going to get a top 2 pick in a great draft. That is most likely going to be Olivia Miles of Notre Dame. We'll see if she does, in fact, go into the draft. Could be her teammate at Notre Dame, Sonia Citrone. I also think it would be interesting if Seattle decided to instead go with a forward or a big, because there are some really intriguing prospects at those spots. Kiki Irifan, Dominique Malonga. So let's just, suffice it to say, they're going to end up with someone really, really good with that number 2 pick. Alternatively, looking at their financial fundamentals, they actually retain a ton of talent and veteran play, and I don't think that they're even close to the category of a rebuilding team this upcoming year. I think they're going to draft someone with a number 2 pick that can play right away because, let's see, they have 5 guaranteed contracts. Gabby Williams, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Nneka Ogwumike, Ezi Magbegor, and Lexi Brown. They also have 9 unguaranteed contracts, but a few of those are really notable players. Alysha Clark, Katie Lou Samuelson. We'll talk about some of their rookie scale players. We'll see at the bottom of their roster, who sticks. Right now, they don't have an open roster spot. They only have $170K in cap space left to work with. The number 2 pick in the draft is going to be under $80,000 in their year 1 salary, so that's fine. Now, in terms of other draft picks, they have the number 2 pick, the number 26, number 29, and number 34. So those later 3 picks, we'll see exactly how they use them. But I'm really intrigued because it's rare that a team this good has an opportunity to draft so high. And even if ultimately this was a transition season, a reloading season, if you want to use a term like that, I think Seattle is poised to make the playoffs again. And maybe they could shock some people. Maybe they could force a long series in round 1. So I'm really intrigued here. I think, kind of going position by position in the backcourt, we got to talk about Skylar Diggins-Smith. This is going to be her age 34 season. Last year, she played all 40 games and 30 minutes per game. So they got a ton of production out of her. And she was great. 15 points a game, 6.4 assists, 1.7 steals, a nearly 1 block a game. So Skylar Diggins was very productive. If they can get a season like that again from her, notwithstanding they might add Olivia Miles, who is a point guard in her own right, then that would be great for their playoff chances. I will note Skylar only shot 29% from the three last year. I'm sure they would love to see that jump up. In general, I think that was a huge, huge weak spot for them. Just looking at the top of their rotation from a year ago, Jewel Loyd shot 27%. Skylar was at 29%. Magbegor was at 24.5% on threes. Gabby Williams at 32.3%. Jordan Horston in her rookie year, 25%. So, they could use some improvement on shooting luck and shooting performance. Olivia Miles would be great for that. I think Skylar and Miles could play together, so I'm certainly rooting for that. And the other thing, too, is they add Katie Lou Samuelson. She's going to return to Seattle after being bought out in Indiana. So, notably there, Seattle signs her for $90,000, and that was a buyout where basically Indiana paid her out minus the veteran minimum. And then Seattle decided to sign her to a $90K deal that's actually above the veteran minimum. I think that there is a chance that Katie Lou comes in and really gives them something. I mean, just to go back in time, she appeared in 27 games in 2021, that year with Seattle, 24 starts, 35% from three that year, even added in 3.5 rebounds per game. And the Storm made the playoffs. Samuelson scored a career-high 18 points and shot 60% from the field in that game. So I think that she is a potential X factor for them, should figure as a rotation player, maybe not a starter, but someone who's going to be playing in consequential lineups. I want to quote here, Samuelson said, "This feels like a full circle moment. I'm thrilled to be back with the Storm, reunited with Noe and so many players that I've played alongside over the years. It's an honor to be a part of an organization that sets the standard, and I'm looking forward to building together and the chance to compete for a championship," end quote. So I think that backcourt and wing play should be very, very good for Seattle. This maybe is a good time to talk about Gabby Williams, who, it was a bit of a surprise. Gabby Williams got the core, which meant that she was entitled to the Supermax salary. Ultimately, she and Seattle were able to negotiate a $225,000 salary. That's about 15% of the salary cap. Gabby Williams is a strong role player, the kind of player, it's hard to imagine a team winning a championship without a player like Gabby Williams. She's beloved and celebrated. She's going to be 28 this year. She only played 12 games a year ago. And so, we all hope that she can be on the floor from beginning to end. And she's just such a well-rounded two-way player that I think it'll be a worthwhile contract. Again, just a little surprising whenever you see a sub-all WNBA type player get the Supermax or get the core and, get a salary that's in the top 10 or 15 of the league. But I think in a lot of ways it makes sense, especially because from a culture standpoint, you're trading away Jewel Loyd. I think they wanted to send a message that, hey, Gabby has done everything the right way. We love her here. We're going to keep her and pay her a very respectable salary. Along those same lines, veteran forward Nneka Ogwumike is back on a $195,000 salary. I think that was a bit of a haircut because she is, even at the end of her career, or certainly the end of her prime years, she is still one of the more forceful offensive players in the league. She's coming off a 16.7 points per game year, 7.6 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.9 steals, and she shot 51% from the field. She also shot 40% from three. She was their best three-point shooter by percentage. So I've already listed off a handful of really strong players. I didn't even mention, when talking about the backcourt rotation, Lexi Brown, who last year in LA averaged 8 points and 3 assists per game. She had a career year in 2023, averaging 12.5 points per game and shot 41% from three. Seattle was able to pick her up for 2 second-round picks. And notably, Lexi Brown is signed in 2026. So, again, one of those rare cases where her and her representation agreed to a salary for 2026 ahead of the new CBA, only a $98,000 salary, that could end up being, fair. I think it's an advantage to Seattle to have a relatively small salary on the books for that year. But we've been listing off guards, forwards. To me, probably my favorite thing about the Seattle team is their center rotation, because they're able to sign Alysha Clark away from Las Vegas. They give her a big salary, $185, after making $110,000 a year each of the last 2 seasons for Las Vegas. She's a winner. Clark won championships with the Storm back in 2018 and 2020, and she won a title in 2023 with the Aces. So not only is Katie Lou Samuelson back in Seattle, not only did Gabby Williams get the core and come back on a big number, sending a message, Nneka is back, Skylar Diggins is back. They have recent draft picks, Horston, and then also Nneka Mule, ready to contribute more in their age 23 seasons. But my favorite player on Seattle, and I think a real player to watch this year in terms of, I would be willing to make a bet that she takes a big step up. And I think the future of the Seattle Storm franchise in a lot of ways is going to be built around age 25, 6'4" defensive anchor, Ezi Magbegor. She's on a sub-max deal, only $186,000 a year. She had a 96 defensive rating last year. That means when she's on the floor, Seattle was only allowing 96 points per 100 possessions. Stifling, really, really effective. She also improved her free throw shooting by 17% last year. And I think Ezi is a pretty rare combination of physical tools and consistent improvement, where, again, I wouldn't be shocked if she jumps up into the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, if she's an all-WNBA contributor. And with Alysha Clark also in the fold as a mentor, and by the way, barring injury, all 40 minutes, Seattle can play either Ezi or Alysha at the center spot. And then you have all these other guards and wings that can rotate in and out. You have Nneka Ogwumike as your power forward and Gabby Williams also as a forward. I think that Seattle is a pretty safe bet to make the playoff. And if their ceiling is not as high as Indiana or Phoenix, and I would say their ceiling is not as high as New York or Minnesota or Las Vegas, right? So if their ceiling is not as high as those 5 teams, I think as of today, I would be willing to bet that they find their way back into the top 5 again, a top 5 record. In other words, I think their floor is high enough where they're going to take advantage of another team stumbling, or even if they have some bad injury luck, if another team has bad injury luck, I would trust Seattle to navigate that better than a Phoenix. I think Seattle is better positioned to navigate adversity than Indiana, which is a younger team by and large. If they draft Olivia Miles at number 2 and she needs to be more slowly developed, they have all these veterans that can absorb additional playing time and help Olivia gradually transition to the W. I love the Seattle team. I think that they are going to be formidable. And let me know what you think. If you think that I'm crazy to pick Seattle to potentially upset some of these contending teams and be in that mix for a top 4, top 5 record, be a team that maybe makes round 2, maybe if everything goes right, they can make a finals run. If you think I'm off base there, if you don't think Ezi is a depot candidate, if you don't think that this rotation is as exciting as I do, if you think that they lost the Jewel Loyd trade, let me know. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap things up there. Please check out all of our WNBA free agency recaps here on the Collective Basketball Agreements feed. I'm your host, Joe Manganiello. Thanks for listening.